Super. I'm admitting more people. And it's 5 here, so we'll wait a couple more minutes, but we can
Sure.
continue our conversation. Yeah, so what I was saying, and for those who are joining us right now, before we start the workshop, we started with a little chat on MCP. I think the reality right now about MCP is we are sold a little bit the dream that it is the only thing you need for AI to figure out exactly what it needs to do. But actually, it is a step forward, but it is very iterative so far. It makes mistakes. It's quite slow when you use it in the chat. And yeah, it's very promising, but it's very early and it's not a magic wand yet that you give to AI to control all your tools. And the take you're going to see today from Gumloop is one of the first. I think you guys are really the first where I really nail it. And that, yeah, if we have that variability in the results, let us have this at the configuration step, configure it right, and then turn it inside an automation. I think this is really spot on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, appreciate that take. Or hopefully we'll keep iterating. I am excited to be here, Alex. There's a ton of faces and folks I don't know, so I would love to know in the chat where everyone is joining from. I don't know if you've got the YouTube chat and share that with me. Happy to give that a look as well. But yeah, welcome. We've got Jacob, Abram, Dan, Deborah, Matt, Jacob. I might have said Jacob twice. Luca, excited to have you here. Vivek from we're in New York, Vivek.
Oh.
I just moved from New York. I know I look like I'm in Brooklyn, but I'm actually in San Francisco.
I,
Uh,
I moved to New York from Canada, so this is
oh, me too. Where are you in Canada?
I used to live in Toronto.
Oh, I'm from Montreal. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
there
the
you
whole
go.
team actually. Most of the Gumloop team is Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal based. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. Welcome. Excited to have you here.
Cool.
Armin from New. I'd love to know like how familiar people like. I feel like Alex, you bring a strong N8N crew. Is that correct?
Depends. So N8N, like we're
I don't
doing
want to
more
brand
content on
anyone, but
N8N. No, no, no. Like we use a lot Make at 9x because my
yeah,
co-founders have been using it a lot. We're
right.
tipping our toes in N8N. I recently have been using a lot Lindy because I don't have so much time to build and I have a lot of personal use cases and it works well for me.
Hmm.
Um, but I think in general, people are like curious and like our stance is those platforms, most of those platforms, you pay per credit anyways. And so you should really look for your use case for the one that offers the best tools. Gone are the days where you need to be married to Make until the end of times. And
Yeah,
especially platforms like Gumloop, what I find really interesting is it's not just API connectors, it's you are really creating tools. And so for certain use cases, if I want to scrape, I don't know, a Reddit thread, or and you have the tool that just give me the one input and I'll scrape all of the content of the thread, then actually we should use Gumloop for that.
yeah,
So it's very like for us, the difficulty is we're teaching more like APIs and workflows in general. We have to provide those examples in different in a platform. So sometimes it's Make because we use it. Sometimes we have demand for N8N workflow. Today we have people who are curious about Gumloop. Maybe we need to do more content on Gumloop. I think in general, yeah, we are tool agnostic, and every platform has its specific takes. And what we're going to see today from you guys, I think nobody else has built on the MCP side. And that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I
But I
would
think
love
you
to
can also do
know.
everything in Gumloop, maybe. So maybe you
Yeah,
can.
we'll see. We can
Yeah.
do a lot of things. So I'd love to know. I know,
Yeah.
yeah, use the Zoom chat. I'd love to know how familiar you are with Gumloop. And yeah, we're relatively small team, a relatively new product. So, appreciate the opportunity to come show off what's possible. So yeah, I'll always have the Zoom chat open if folks want to chat with
Yeah.
me. But Alex, I'm ready when you are.
Cool. I'm just battling with the screen sharing, and then
Tell me about it. The
the
bane of our
classic.
existence, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, like one thing's for sure, Gumloop is easier to use than Zoom. Like any automation.
Yeah, that's not a compliment. I wouldn't say. That's just kind of,
Yeah, like I have Zoom is my nemesis. Everybody. That's why we have to cut often the live just the beginning because it's just me like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. No, I
Share my
know that. I
screen.
know that feeling.
Up. Okay, we're ready to start. So a very quick presentation, and then I'll hand over to you, and we'll spend most of the time looking at what you can do with Gumloop. So welcome to this next 9xi workshop. Today we're going to see how you can build AI automations with Gumloop and Gumloop MCP, one of the latest features they've released. Quick logistics before we start. So as introduction, so we are 9x, go9x.com. We teach AI and automation to mostly non-technical users. We do training, we have online courses, we do workshops, all the way down to custom cohorts for companies. We have a YouTube channel, so that's one CTA. I'm going to drop it in the chat after the introduction. And the latest video is a 2-minute intro on MCP. So I'm going to do a little bit of explanation on MCP, but if you want to check out a quick explanation on MCP, we also have this is the latest video on the channel. We have a course where we teach you the fundamentals, like technical fundamentals to learn AI and automation. That's called the AI and Automation Master. The principle of the course is very simple. We are going to add anything that's relevant in the future to learn AI and automation. So that's already 100 hours of content. Things around APIs, databases, how to prompt, how to build AI agents, how to build AI workflows, and that you can apply and you will find useful in platforms like Gumloop. I'll share the link afterwards. That's for the promotion part. What you will learn in this workshop, I will do 2 quick sections on MCP. So what is Model Context Protocol, MCP, and why it's relevant? Like what's the fuss about about this tech? And why, in my opinion, MCP is more for automations and agents, and we don't talk about it, than chat. Like all the posts I see on LinkedIn are, I managed to do something with Claude or ChatGPT. That is nice, but I think the potential is elsewhere. And then I'll hand over to Aron, which will show us an application, a usage of MCP, or how Gumloop leverages MCP to help you build any automation, or almost nearly any automation. Let's not over promise. All right, so quickly on MCP. Sorry, first, Aron, welcome. Welcome again. Maybe a quick introduction about yourself for those who are just joining now.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Aron Korenblit, head of community education at Gumloop. If you've seen my face or heard my voice, it's probably because I was a Webflow before and Airtable before that. And maybe if you're an old school no coder, you remember me from Automate All the Things, which I think is where I met you, Alex, first.
Yes.
So yeah, really excited to be here. Excited to
To
chat
put things
it out.
to put things in perspective, I am very new to the game of teaching people AI and automation or automation online, and Aron is a veteran, is a seasoned. Let's put it this way. You should check his
Yeah,
channel. Automate all the things is really, really, really nice. Like
yeah, it's all
love
things
the
you can do
content.
with a few prompts today. So give you a blast from the past for sure.
Yeah, no, but it was yeah, right at the beginning in the no code times, there was like a very good channel to follow. Super. And today is going to tell us everything he knows about Gumloop, and you're going to see. So quickly on MCP, what is MCP? So first thing that I need to know is that with tools, large language models, tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, are gaining new capabilities, and that's the whole point of MCP. So if we take these tools, these LM standalone, just by themselves, their capabilities, they are great at conversation, they are great at if you need help brainstorming, strategizing, pulling facts online, but they cannot perform meaningful tasks. You get your answer in the chat, and then it's your turn to go to Airtable, update that record, check this record in Salesforce, write the email and send it. Now, if we give to the same LLMs access to our tools, to Salesforce, to Gmail, to Notion, suddenly it gets more interesting. Now, the same LLMs can get our relevant context, and that's key. That's the difference between answers that are not meaningful and answers that are relevant for us is context. Context is everything. Context is in the tools you already use. So this is one improvement. Second improvement, no more copy pasting, clicking buttons, and all that good stuff that we're used to. They can perform actions on our behalf. So that's amazing. You can just say it, and your wish is your command, or is the LLM's command, and the actions will be executed. Sounds great. And that's traditionally like before MCP, the challenge for that is not that it was impossible, is that there was no standard way to do that across all your tools, meaning you had to configure every single interface. And so MCP is a protocol, it's a layer between the LLM and your tools. It's a standard of communication that is going to help the LLM access, like basically it's going to simplify that process. So in theory, you plug it and it works. In reality, and that's a bit the discussion we had before starting the live or right at the beginning, the direction is clear. So MCP, I'm going from knowledge, LLMs are the thinking copilot, to action. In the future, LLMs are going to be the command line for every application. In reality, that's not quite happening because in some cases, the answers, when it's pulling context from your tools, so if you take LLMs plus MCP with read access, with the possibility to fetch information from Notion, for instance, or to read your emails, the responses it gets are more or less reliable. And it's excruciatingly slow to respond. Like you have to validate, oh, I'm going to access your email. Do you agree to that? Yes. And then hold on for 30 seconds. So very far from a delightful experience. And when you want to do things with MCP with write access, meaning you can create things, send an email, update the record in Salesforce, then here it gets even worse because the actions partially work. So it might update the wrong deal in Salesforce. It's still very slow to execute the comment. So we're very far from the vision. Maybe we will see this in the near future. It's still very early, but right now, it's far from it. And what's more, I don't think this is where we should be looking at, not the AI chat solution, but, whoops, animation. But you should look not at the chat, not at connecting Claude with MCP or connecting, you have ChatGPT connectors now, that's great, and it's going to get better. But you should pay attention to what MCP allows for automations and AI agents. Because coming from this space where we have to build these, configure these inside Make, inside Gumloop, inside Zapier, inside Glindy, relevance, and so on. It is very close to programming. It is complicated. We teach that. We can see it's not that easy. Also, sometimes I struggle building my own workflows. And MCP is, I think, a step forward in terms of simplifying this process, democratizing this process. And today we're going to see concretely what MCP inside an AI automation platform enables with Gumloop. And the stage is yours, Aron.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Okay. It is like 8:15 a.m. I'm like 3 coffees deep. So I need some hype, So if our folks are on Zoom, let me know in the chat, like questions, whatever. Really excited to jump in. Alex, I really appreciate that introduction. I think the best way to do this, thank you. Welcome, Ted. Best way to do this is I'll start just building in Gumloop, and then we'll get to the MCP portion, right? So I think a lot of folks in the chat mentioned like, hey, I'm pretty new to Gumloop. I don't know quite how it works. So we're going to start with a very simple use case, which is like, I want to get a report in the morning about everyone I'm meeting today that isn't part of my organization, right? Very, very simple use case. as always, in the chat, whether that's YouTube and you could relay it to me, Alex, or in Zoom, let me know if you have questions or thoughts. Brief introduction maybe into Gumloop. We are a relatively new company. I think we graduated from YC last year. We're about a under 10-person team here in San Francisco. And just, yeah, love automation and really excited to show you. So as I'm building, I'll kind of talk about the difference between Gumloop and maybe other automation tools, or how we think about automation that's a little different. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And Alex, if you're nice enough, give me a thumbs up. We're good to go.
We are good to
cool.
go.
Okay, so Gumloop is a automation tool. It is node based, and what we believe in is that every workflow that you've ever built is a series of steps, right? So when you think of the way you, either as a marketer, as an operation person, as a go-to-market person, you're like, okay, I always do this, right? I have a workflow, and Gumloop's goal is to allow you to automate that workflow, especially if AI is involved, right? Sometimes it can even automate workflows you didn't think were possible. So very simply, let's start by building a workflow that goes to my calendar, checks for any external attendees, gets a report about them, and then generates an email that looks really pretty that's in my inbox every morning. Very simple use case. I'm happy to talk about the hundreds of thousands of use cases that people have built in Gumloop. Now, a little different than what you're used to in Gumloop, we're going to start with an input, right? So this is not necessarily with a trigger. We're going to say, okay, this is what we're going to test our flow with. You're going to have to bear with me as like, why are we using an input node when we want to use our Google Calendar? That will come in about 6 minutes, right? So let's imagine that this is my attendee email. That's the name of this input. And some context here, Gumloop was built by developers, so we have that little bit of a developer feel, but really our goal is to democratize you to build any automation. And let's use Brian Chesky at Airbnb as my attendee. Okay. Okay, so what do we want to do? You know, when I think of like, let's get recent news about Airbnb, maybe with a Perplexity search. So what I'm going to do, right? So this is a flow, and every step in my automation is a node. So next, what I want to do is want to go to Perplexity. So I'm going to go to my node library, Perplexity web search. And I'm going to say, okay, well, give me recent news about, and then here I want to put Airbnb, right? But today, Airbnb lives here. It lives in my input. So what I would want is to replace this value right here with this input. Now, if you're using automation tools, you may be familiar with like connecting nodes together. In Gumloop, it's very similar. It's a two-step process, right? So first you connect to nodes. That's saying make the data available from this node into this one. So now we see attendee email. And now I see give me recent news about, and I can drag and drop like that. And now this is saying whatever is in here, put it in here. Now, pro tip, Alex, you now have at, making it a little easier, a little faster. That's for, existing Gumloop users. Shipped that last week. Very,
Very
very
nice.
fun. Very nice, right? Yeah. Oh, actually, wait till I show you this little auto formatting. You're going to love that. If you haven't opened Gumloop in like 10 days, it's like, oh my God, everything is new, which is awesome. But when you think about it, if I say attendee email, it's not quite what I want. I don't want news about Brian Chesky. I want news about Airbnb, right? So how do we transform and make sure that this is about Airbnb? I'm going to break this link, and I'm going to put a node between the two. Now, we work on a freeform canvas, right? So you can build however you want. Now, Alex, you're old enough. You've been in the game long enough to know that what you would do to extract a domain from an email is use maybe some regex, but we live in a new world now. We can just use AI for everything. So we're going to extract data. Now, yeah, would you use AI for this today, or are you still a regex person?
No, I would use AI. I would use AI
Yeah.
for this today. Yeah. It's simpler because I always say, and I would take in consideration. So it depends, like, what would you do with what you know to do? So if you know, maybe you have a left or a right function, or there are some functions where you can do that also reliably, but or extract a pattern. but it's also about who's going to edit the workflow later. And I
Right.
think the huge advantage of AI, if it's you write a prompt, here's an email, extract the domain, anyone can go change that later on. Uh,
Exactly.
so it is much more
You're
accessible.
you're a much better person. I'm just like, I'm lazy. This feels easier, you know? Now, so what I did there, I went to the node library, and then we have a whole section on the different ways you can use AI, right? So you mentioned like write a prompt, get a response. That's using Ask AI. Extract data, right? I have a PDF. I want to extract who sent it to me. I want to get clauses from a legal contract, extract data. Categorizer, I want to know if something's positive or negative. Pick one category. Product feedback, which part of our product.
Conversation, strategizing.
Oh, I'm going to, good. Awesome. Okay, so then we have a bunch of others, AI web research. If anyone has questions, let me know in the chat. Elon, I saw your question. We'll definitely get to that. We're going to extract data, right? What do we want to do? I'm just going to organize. So what do I want to do here? I want to take the email, connecting, passing the value. That's what I want to extract from. So here's like my prompt, my context. I'm going to say, extract information from email. This is the general context. And then I have different pieces of data. So I want you to extract the domain. So you are given an email, extract the domain. I like to give context. So if I give you brian.chesky@airbnb.com, return airbnb.com. Okay. Now, first kind of note in Gumloop that's important is that we provide connections to all of the different either models or different vendors, right? So with Gumloop, everything is all inclusive. You don't need to sign up to anything else, whether that's SEMrush, Apollo, whatever it is, you get everything through Gumloop and you use our agreements. We use OpenAI, Anthropic more than most large companies, right? So we have good agreements with them, and we can then use our agreements to give you credits on Gumloop. So you don't need to log in. You don't need to provide an API key. You can pick whatever model. If a model is available, probably within a couple days, it's available here. And if there's a specific model that you want, it's very, very easy for us to add. So OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, DeepSeek, XAI, and Azure. Alex?
No, this is very cool. Like this is very cool. This is one like it's not simple like convenience factor. It's not having to create accounts left and right to finish my use case. I think is very valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Okay, so in this case, whatever model you'll pick, probably smart enough at these days. Maybe I would not have said that 6 months ago, but today. Now note, you pick a simpler model. So GPT-4.1 Mini is going to cost you two credits. You get 30,000 on our starter plan, and I think 1,000 or 2,000 for free. Okay, so then let's go ahead and connect to, now we have the domain, we can pass it in, and let's execute just this flow. So this is saying run every node in our flow. So there's a question in the chat that says, how can AI help with the flow creation? You can ask Gummy. So Gummy has context around your flow. It can help you debug errors. I think I have it. I'm going to give you a sneak peek. We are working on kind of chat to flow. Oh, I don't have it on my. They removed me from the beta, so we are working on the ability to build a whole flow. However, we want to get to a point where it's good and is successful, right, enough times, and uses our MCP nodes, which I'll show you in a moment. So that's what we're working on as well. And I'll use Gummy.
I have a question on this, Aaron. Do you?
Yeah.
Like, it's more about the vision of the product because
Sure.
do you believe, does the team believe at some point that you will prompt your workflow just like you can vibe code apps, and what are the conditions, or like what are the criteria to get there? And the reason I'm asking is you can do like most no-code platforms have some form of generated workflow or an app or a database functionality, but right now they miss a little bit the mark in the configuration. And
Yep.
so basically, the advanced users, they don't have a use case particularly because they need to change things and audit what was done anyways. And the
Hmm.
beginners, they don't find the mistake anyways, so
Yeah.
they better get building. So what's your take there
Yeah.
as of the team?
Yeah. So, look, this is a much longer conversation, but that I'm happy to have very quickly. Um, my work here, basically, every week I work at Gumloop is the same. I come in on Monday, and someone is like, "We're building this," and I'm like, "There's no way AI can do this." And on Friday, I get to use it, and it works. And MCP nodes, which I'll show you in a moment, is a perfect example of that.
Okay.
So we have today um, a workflow builder that is very good. And what I mean by very good
Working?
is that if you go ahead and prompt Gummy, it'll build a pretty good workflow. However, exactly where you said it struggles is what we're trying to fix, right? So that ability to be like, oh, it doesn't understand this concept quite well. And then debugging is hard, right? Because if you need to use a chat, you're not an expert builder, and so it
Yeah.
kind of has to be good. There's nothing worse than like 70% good, because you're an expert, you're just going to build it, and if you're a beginner, you want something that works.
Yeah.
So we're trying to find a balance between the two, but we fundamentally believe
We'll
that
get there.
within 6 to 12 months, you'll be able to just prompt your way to a workflow. But we also believe in the future where it shouldn't just be code, because that's not understandable, right? There needs to be this middle layer where you can be like, actually, no, I want you to change this channel. I need to build on top of this. Hey, can you edit that? So what we believe in is like this cursor type experience, but that is node based, right? Where any node, right? Like a good example is,
Yeah.
why do we make you pick what type of AI node you need to use? You can just prompt it and it'll pick the right node for you, right? What about, hey, I don't want to use your existing pre-built package thing. Let me prompt. And MCP nodes, which I've been teasing for like 20 minutes, are an example of that, right? It's our first step to be like, let's allow the user to do whatever they want,
Yeah.
and we will build it for them at the node level. So just like Cursor kind of revolutionized a little bit how people code,
Yeah.
I think our vision is to do something similar, but for non-technical people. We don't believe that they will be in Cursor. We believe that they'll be in a Cursor-like experience, but that is readable, right? So something like this, you're like, oh, okay, we're going to take the email, we're going to get a domain, we're going to do a perplexity search.
Exactly.
Gummy today would have built this for sure.
Exactly. That's the so like the revenge of no code is that it's much more understandable than code. So if you
Yes.
can visually represent what was generated, and it's called input, then extract data, then perplexity, then I am closer to understanding what it does than insert a big script of code and
Exactly. Exactly.
okay.
And I have a really good story about why I joined Gumloop, which I'll keep for the end, which is exactly this. So, okay, so we're now getting a Perplexity web search. Let's actually do something that I struggle a lot with, which is like, let's go get internal data about this person. Let's go get their HubSpot tickets, right? So I want to go ahead and go to HubSpot, right? Now you'll notice we have these native. So these are our native with these icons, and these are MCP built nodes. We're going to build one together in a moment, but they feel exactly like nodes. So this is just get contact tickets. So what does it take as an input? It takes an email. We're going to pass it in. And let's do 100 maximum tickets, right? So this is what I want to add to my report. And this is going to internal data. So it's going to HubSpot. It's going to do my perplexity search. So now we're executing every step. Let me look at the outputs, right? So now I have tickets from Brian Chesky that Brian can't get into his Airbnb. That's a problem, right? Then it's extracting the domain, and then I have my perplexity web search. This is news about Airbnb. Now I want to output this. So I'm creating a little function, right? So let's first kind of combine all these inputs. I'm going to use a combine text, right? Which is just saying I want one output, which is for each attendee, right? So I'm going to say, okay, what do we have here? We have our perplexity news. That's going to be the response from this node. Then we're going to do HubSpot tickets. And this is what we're going to feed into the AI. And then we're going to have the contact, which is coming from the input, right? So bam, contact from the input. This is attendee email. Great. Okay, so now I've built write report. Actually, let's call this get information about external attendee. So we've created a function. If you're technical, actually, I forgot the output. Let's output something. Let's call this contact details or information. I'm really bad at naming variables. I'm really excited for AI to name all my variables. That's mostly what I'm excited about. Combine text. Let's do that. Okay. So this is saying, what does it take as an input? It takes an email, does the report, and exports, outputs this right here. So let's save this. So now we have this function called get information about external attendee. Now we can repurpose this, right? So this is another big distinction with, other tools is we think like a developer thinks. We've built a function. Now we can go ahead and repurpose this function, where we call these subflows. So now this is going to be get external attendees. So what do we want to do? Let me turn on the lights here. It's a little dark. This is my shut up timer. It turns off the lights if I don't move for like 8 minutes. Okay, so we have our function, get information about external attendees. Now we want to go to my Google Calendar and get all the external attendees. This is the MCP moment. Now, so if I go to Google Calendar, we have this create a Google Calendar node with AI. We're going to spend some time here. Now, Alex, you mentioned at the beginning, like, how do you do this through a chat client? You're going to be like, hi, Claude. Very important to be polite. Good morning. I need you to get my external attendees. And then it's going to be like, oh, do you want to use a Google Calendar tool? You're going to be like, yes. Then it's going to be like, oh, well, the API isn't quite, not the API, but like, I can't get it. Can you validate this? Can you give me this? And you're going to get it once. And then the next day, you're going to do it all over again. Right. And I can talk a little bit, if we're interested, about like the way we thought about this is that Claude, ChatGPT are not good clients. They aren't built to give you a consistent output because of all the variety of things people do in ChatGPT and Claude, and they're not like purpose built for these types of things. So when we saw that, we said, what do we want? We want a consistent output, right? We want to, once you have something you like, we want you to be able to repurpose it in all of your flows. And the second thing we realized is that the power of MCP for us is that it allows us to do so much more with existing integrations, right? So if I look at the Google Calendar API, let's look at Slack. Actually, let's just take a moment. I'm going to take a moment. Sidebar. Let's go to Slack. These are all the different things you can do in Slack. We could create a node for each one of these. Read messages, send messages, create canvas, add user to channel, right? But you think of every node has its own little flavor, has own little changes that you want, right? When you say invite a user to a channel, do you mean an array of users? Do you mean external users? Do you mean users that just added to your workspace? So there's so much each person can do with each tool that by creating native nodes, we're kind of limiting you to say, this is how we think you should use Slack. And that's not how you want to use Slack. So when we saw that, we said, well, why can't we prompt a node that does exactly what you want it to do? And the path to get there, we think, is by having the AI write code with you to generate that node, and then you get to a result that you like, okay? So let me go into Google Calendar. And what do I want, right? I want to do get return external attendees for meetings in the next 24 hours. Now, we face a similar challenge to clients, but we are kind of purpose built. So Gummy's going to go through this process of building this node with me. So the first thing it's doing, it's interpreting your prompt to say, I think the inputs, parameters, and outputs of the node you want to build are the following. Oh man, I landed that. I right when I said it, it came up. So it's saying, okay, you're gonna pick a calendar, you're gonna input your organization domain, and you're gonna tell me whether or not you want to include meeting details. What I'm going to return is external attendee and meeting details. That feels right to me. If I want to change, I could be like, no, actually, always include meeting details. I can either chat or just remove it. So at this moment, we're kind of saying like, let's put a little friction so that we build something that you can reuse, right? Now, Alex, think of this, like we could have built this, but then it would have been like, get all my meetings, filter, what is my domain that I might use a custom node. So let's now, where we're happy with the inputs, parameters, and outputs, we're going to generate the code. Now, intimidating, but this is essentially saying Gummy's going to write code that queries the MCP servers in a consistent way, right? And once we're happy with the outputs, we're going to say, run this code every time this node is executed. So we don't have to worry about doing this every time. So it's a little bit more work upfront, but once you get a node that does what you want it to do, you're good to go. Does that make sense? Happy to answer any questions as this is thinking. We can see the code streaming in, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, this is very interesting. These steps that you have, that initial control, because that is, if you think about it, that's also what chat solutions like in Claude when I'm going to query. Let's say I'm querying my Notion database. Instead of going straight on, all right, let me try that, and missing the mark, it makes more sense to have an interface like that to clarify, well, this is what I'm going to do, and these are the parameters I'm entering. So you can see sort of like the API calls that Claude MCP is doing, but it is not as good as this, and it makes a lot of sense to have this step.
Yeah, so the purpose is very different, right?
Yeah, as well.
When we think about, we want to get you to a node that you can repurpose. So a lot of our clients are larger enterprises, right? Who are like, when I say Salesforce, I don't just mean retrieve, everyone's Salesforce is different. Everyone's setup is different. The information you
Yes.
want to retrieve, the filtering. So like a good example is HubSpot. The way you've configured HubSpot might be different, and there's connections. So you might want to be saying, hey, I'm going to give you an email, return the last 3 conversations, the emails, and the tickets. That's like a whole flow. Now it's just a prompt. Okay, so now before you can save a node, you have to be sure that it's giving you what you want. So I'm going to go Aron demo, gumloop.com, and now let's run a test. You have to run a test to see what the output is. Now, just like Claude, it might not be successful. In this case, it was successful, right? So it's saying your external attendees is Brian Chesky and Reed Hastings, which is correct, right? So on my calendar, I have 2. Let me pull up my calendar. 1 second. Let me make sure. Here we go. Let's bring this. So I have 2 meetings, Airbnb, Netflix. So what we've built here is a node that does exactly what I want it to do. It gets my external attendees for the day. Kind of cool. Like, I don't know. I get really excited about this, as you can tell from my voice, because I'm no longer limited by like what Gumloop people, I work here, have built for you. You can just prompt your way to a node that does exactly what you want it to do. And once you get an output that you like, what's great is that this code doesn't change, right? So we are never going to change this code. So every time you run this, it's going to execute in the exact same way. So now you can use this to build in your flows, which we're going to do. So I'm going to finalize that node. I can give it, so I'm going to call this 9x live external attendees. So I've just built, I built a node, right? How cool is that?
That's pretty cool. And especially knowing how, like, for those who have maybe played a little bit with platforms similar to Gumloop, like whether Make or N8N or Zapier, and I've tried configuring things more custom. Unless you work as an automation freelancer or in an automation agency, the level of difficulty is skyrocketing there. Like you're no longer dragging a new node or a new module, and filling the form, like, oh, I just connect to my calendar and I put a few parameters. You are programming inside the module, and either you know what you're doing, or you can spend considerable amount of time, and you might not succeed also in doing what you want. And so that's truly different from what I've seen so far. That's also much easier and much more accessible for people who are not do not spend all their day in platforms like Gumloop to get to value much quicker. This is
Yeah.
really, really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I always get excited. I honestly, like, this is not an act. Every time I build an MCP node, I'm like, I am so powerful, because I'm no longer limited. But also, like, I'm not, obviously, you and I could code and, like, we can go and chat GPT, write me this thing, paste it somewhere. But the fact that, like, something is helping me build out this thing that does exactly what I want it to do, and then I could repurpose it in every one of my flows is, like, amazing, right? Okay, but let's build out the rest of the flow. Let's just really quickly, and then I'm happy to answer questions. So we now have the external attendees. So if I run this, it's going to get me my external attendees for today. And what I want to do is I want to run this for all external attendees, right? So in Gumloop, we have this concept of subflows. Subflows is essentially give me every single flow that's in my workbook. Let me just refresh here. Subflows, all flows. Obviously, my Wi-Fi is super slow this morning. Here we go. I think my computer is struggling here. Okay, here we're back. Sorry about that. My Wi-Fi just dropped out for a moment. Get information about external attendee. This is saying this is a flow I've built. It has an input and an output. I can use it here. And I could say, okay, I want you to run get external information about every single attendee. So I'm going to connect. Now, for folks who are new to Gumloop, this is actually another big moment, right? We're going to have a list. We have 2 attendees. We could have 10. We could have 100. And we're passing it into a text input. This is going to go into loop mode. This is saying, I'm going to run this node, this flow, for every item in the list. There's going to be 2 outputs. We're going to have 2 contact information that includes the HubSpot contact detail, the contact, the HubSpot, and the perplexity. So in Gumloop, this idea of running on lists is native and parallel, right? It is a very, it's a little intimidating at first because you have to understand how to use lists, when to smush lists. We have whole courses about that. But it is a real superpower because what does good programming look like? It looks like a bunch of functions, right? So you get information and you're like, hey, get information, send me an email, analyze this. That's how our flows should look. And this is, I'm going to do one quick rant. All on social media, all we see are complex flows, 50, 60 steps. And we all know that what a good automation looks like is a bunch of small steps that have been improved over time, right? So if I want to add something to this flow, yeah, I can add like 50 nodes, but what is better is adding a subflow, right? So if I want to say like, go to HubSpot or go to Salesforce or go to these different things, I can build a bunch of subflows and build these really complicated flows, but that can be broken down into much simpler steps. Now, Alex, that was a pass to you where I'm sure you share that similar frustration.
Yes, that's the unfortunate trend on LinkedIn and a bit less on X, but on LinkedIn of people sharing what I call the workflows that look like either a spaceship or a Christmas tree, based on your preference. The more nodes, the more spectacular it looks, the less likely it is to work. Actually, if you pay attention to the screenshots, usually they are not configured. So you have like
Yeah.
60 modules, and then you have like errors left and right. And of course, you always have coming next to it the claim that they automated the entire SDR team or that
Right.
it's making money on autopilot. But there's the urge, the need to share that on LinkedIn and share it for free with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So I like workflows that look like that when there's 2 modules because my brain cannot take so many variables, 65 modules. This looks good. This looks like things I would like to build.
Yeah. And so I've just run it. And so what do we have here? So we got our external attendees.
Yeah.
Then we ran the subflow, right? So I now have my perplexity, this is update about Airbnb. And then I have another one, which is Netflix CEO Reed Hastings. So I have information about Netflix. And then I have 2 tickets from Reed. He's a big Gumloop user. That's a joke, by the way, if he ever watches. Now, this is in like a big piece of text. Now, again, before, like text was a kind of like big blobs of text were bad, right? In old automation tools. But now with AI, we want big blobs of text because they can analyze them very well. But what's important here, what is the next step here? I want to have an AI step that writes me an email that takes all this information and says like, here are your meetings for today. Here's everything you know, right? And then I want to send myself an email. So I'm going to use an Ask AI step. And I'm going to say, okay, write me an email that takes to you are an executive assistant. I don't want to spend too much time. And your role is to prepare me. So pro tip, I actually have AI write prompts for me most of the time. But I want to show you
which one do you use? You use
I
like
use Gummy. I use
for the
Gummy.
prompts?
Yeah, write me a prompt that takes as input HubSpot tickets, Perplexity search about recent events and contact details, and writes me an HTML email that will prepare me for the day. So there's a question in the chat. Does Gummy cost credits? No, Gummy is free, so you can use Gummy as much as you'd like. Here we go. So bam. I'm going to copy paste with some formatting issues. That's fine. You are an executive assistant, yada, yada, yada. And then you see Gummy has context over your understand. So actually the next step I will be using is Gmail Sender, right? So it recommends next steps that you can add to your flow right away. That was like V1 of a Gummy agent mode, which I have access to, but you will not, which we're working on building. Okay. Then now there's an important concept. I'm trying to like show you the power of Gumloop, but also teach you basic concepts because I know the crowd here is like semi-technical and usually are pretty good at existing automation tools. So we have a list, right? So we have 2 outputs. What we want the Ask AI is to give me 1 report. What's important to remember, and I'm doing a whole course on this week. If I go into loop mode, I'm going to get as many outputs as I have inputs. So I have 2 contacts. I'm going to get 2 like contact details or HubSpot ticket information. I don't want 2 reports or N reports. I want 1 report. So I don't want to connect and then pass the contact information because that's going to go to loop mode and it's going to give me a report for each attendee. That's not what I want. So I'm going to turn off loop mode. It's going to give me an error. I need to smush the list, right? This is a technical term in Gumloop world where we're going to smush this list into a big blob of text. So we're going to go join list items. I'm going to pass it in here. I'm passing in a list. And then the output will be text. So it's just taking that list, turning it into text, separating by a new line. That I can add to the Ask AI node. And then bam, now the AI has all the context around everyone I'm meeting that day. And let's quickly put this into a Gmail sender. I'm going to send this to myself. And I'm going to go through the flow one more time just so you understand if that went a little too quickly. So the response is going to be a body, right? Recipient is going to be me. And I'm going to say your report for today. And I don't want to send it as draft. I actually want to kind of have it send it to me. Okay, so let's walk through what's going on here. We're getting external attendees using an MCP node, but just looks like a node. Doesn't have to be MCP. We talked a lot about whether we should even call them MCP nodes. It's just a node. We're going to loop over our subflow that gets all the internal data about that person and does a Perplexity search. We're going to smush the list, pass it to Ask AI to write a report, and then that's going to be sent to me. Now, check this out. I'm going to run it. I'm going to run the whole thing. We can also resume, right? Because actually, let me resume. Let me just show you an example. So we can resume from here.
what is resume doing?
Resume is essentially saying if you've already run the flow and you want, so it's going to skip steps that don't need to be rerun.
Okay.
So this is particularly useful when you have an expensive node or you want to save time. It's always going to go to the last node you added -1, right? So it
Ooh,
still
that's
needs
great.
that context. So
That's
if we run this thing, you can, if you're playing with the prompt, you can, let's do that. Let's resume from here. It'll run this flow. It'll run everything. It'll send us the email. But we'll be able to resume from the Ask AI node. Now, quick pro tip. I just want to, actually, I'll do it after. So now we're using Mini. Maybe we want 4.1. I don't know if our report's going to be great, but we'll see an example of it. So now it's processing the information, and then it's going to send me an email. Once you're happy with it, you can add a trigger, a time trigger, to say run this every morning at 8 a.m. And it's going to go through this whole flow, just like you would with any other. It's taking a lot of time. So while that's running, let me actually, we can now auto format nodes. Bam. And you can collapse all, expand all, format, have really beautiful flows, and it really works.
While you're doing this, Aaron, I have a question on the how does the account of an organization that's really extensively using Gumloop look like? Do you have like, are they using this logic of subflow extensively, and so basically it's a little bit cleaner than maybe on other platforms where you have make scenarios left and right, or you have N8N workflows left and right, and basically you repeat yourself a lot. Do you have maybe examples of
really,
companies where you have that sort of like orchestration that makes a lot of
yes.
sense?
Let me show you. Oh, whoa. Let me go here. Okay, we made a little mistake on this. Is great, actually. You see, we have it sent me HTML, which is not what we want, right? So let's fix that. This is the report we just sent ourselves. So let me fix that. I forgot to turn on send as HTML. Okay, but this is a perfect example. Let's resume and let's just send the email, right? So now it's just going to rerun that node. And I just saw it come in. And I'm going to answer your question. There we go. So now we have our report. Meeting preparation. Here are priority items for today. And that's the way we've structured the prompt. We can now change this however we want. And we could run this in perpetuity. Like now this is built, gets external attendees, does the perplexity search. And just before I answer your question, Alex, like a lot of people will be like, why don't I use agents for this? I think that's a great question. Personally, and I think we may eventually include agent type workflows. We think that business workflows are deterministic, or at least they want them to be deterministic, right? So if I tell an agent, go check tickets in HubSpot, it may be able to do that, but we want the output to be consistent, right? I want my workflow, my email to be consistent. And if I make changes to it, that it improves over time. So that's what we found businesses to be successful with. I'm not saying that people shouldn't use agents or that we're not going to incorporate agents. It's just that where we see the most value today in terms of automation and workflows, even those that incorporate AI very deeply, people want a step. They have an idea of what the workflow looks like. What they struggle with is putting it in action. You know, like I want to be able to do QA automatically. And then they have people doing things. They know what the steps are. Gumloop lets them turn those steps into workflows. And so this is a good example where, hey, I want this to look like this. I always wanted to go to HubSpot. I want to improve on this. And then to your point around what does a large organization look like, right? So we think of, so we created this concept called organization templates, where if you've built something that is extremely useful for yourself, subflows mainly, you're going to say, hey, this flow takes as input in email, gets the HubSpot tickets and does a perplexity search and outputs this piece of information. If you want to reuse this, put it up as a template in your organization. This sounds a little maybe quote unquote easy, right? But when you think of using things like Salesforce, the way you've configured Salesforce is so unique that when you're able to say, hey, we've heard customers who are like, I can't even get the last quarterly business report we did with the customer because our Salesforce is so complex. So you build an MCP node that does exactly that. And then you are like, okay, well, you're going to input a domain, and then it's going to get the last deals, it's going to get the QBRs, it's going to get all this information, it's going to output it. That's extremely valuable to many different workflows. So that's why we have this concept of organization templates, where whether it's a flow in whole or a subflow, right? Those are actually the same in Gumloop. You can repurpose them, and then you build those building blocks to build more complex workflows,
I
right?
shall add to that, especially with large organizations. Um, not everyone's equal when it comes to building.
Yep.
Given the complexity, the damage you can do in a larger, let's say, your tech scale up, I don't believe in the future where everyone will be able to build anything they want. Like they still require some knowledge, some also a willingness to do it. And some people won't
For
want to
sure.
do it. And what this enables is to have, let's have the most skilled builders in the organization build those super valuable templates for everyone else. And typically, the Salesforce example is spot on. Like every
Yeah.
large organization is using Salesforce as the CRM. They cannot do anything with that. But if there's one tool we're not going to do a 9x live session on, it's probably Salesforce because I'm not a big fan.
Yeah.
And so now we're trying to extract data from it, do things around Salesforce, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge to pull the data you want, and it will end up in a flow that is not as easy or as straightforward as what you showcase. But the point is, with your setup, with templates, only one person needs to do it, and then deliver it to the rest of the organization, and then suddenly I can get the contact in Salesforce and fetch all the information that's also relevant just by using the template that the best builder in the organization has built, or the one that at least spend the time doing that with Salesforce. So that's
Yeah.
really, really good, and that's really relevant for large companies.
Yeah. And I think there are different ways where you can bring the power of automation to your workforce, right? One is like build a template that other people can turn on and off as they want. Another is just like everyone gets an email, right? Like Gumloop has this concept of workspace credentials, right? So I'm currently using personal credentials, but you can imagine a world where we let everyone run this automatically so it gets everyone's calendar. The other part is you can also do what we call interfaces. So this is a URL where you go and you run a flow. So a good example might be, hey, someone built this amazing flow to get a one pager about an account, and all you need is an account ID. You can add an interface and then you share across your org to say, hey, put in an account ID here, and it's going to return in your inbox a summary of that. Or, hey, do you want a competitive analysis? Enter 3 different competitors. We're going to go scrape their website. We're going to have AI compare our positioning versus their positioning. I have an example, and I know we're bumping on the time. I have an example where every time I generate a new article, I have an interface that runs and identifies in my sitemap other places where I should link that article, right? That's an interface. It's kind of, you just put drag and drop a URL and it's good to go. So I know we're on time. I'm happy to answer questions if folks have any. If folks want to keep learning, gumloop.com/university, join a cohort where we have every 2 weeks, we have a session where you can have 3 sessions of learning Gumloop.
And
It's all free.
you're still running those sessions?
Yeah, yeah.
You get the best Gumloop. Like honestly, Gumloop has for a small team, investing so early in education is I think is also the right move. And with you, I think yeah, like this is really one of the main problems with integration platforms, automation platforms, no-code platforms. They are very powerful, but they require you to learn how to use them. And so every single of those platforms has the problem that their users need to be educated. And yeah, like the program that you have to bring new users on board, I think is great. And so that's one of the guarantees. Like if you want to start using Gumloop, they are putting the right resources so that you get started and you're not stuck. You learn your first use case with the small cohort. That's really it's a good setup I think you have. I have one
Yeah,
question on
sure,
interfaces.
sure.
Are interfaces forms to trigger workflows,
Yes,
or do you have the feedback of the workflow that can be also displayed, or is it not right?
yes. So let me give a quick example.
Because that's something
Where
people were asking for. What is the difference with Gumloop and other platforms? Um,
so yeah,
Not
let
everyone
me.
has interfaces like Gumloop does. And last time I checked was, I think it was just forms, but I think you have more than
No,
that.
no. So now you can build, let's say, text field. So you're gonna do your email, then you're gonna do like email, right? And then so attendee email. Let's return to workflow. Let's copy the link. Let's save. I'm not gonna run it, but here now I can run this. And if I run the flow and there's an output, it'll show the output,
Ah, that's
right?
amazing.
So you right on the flow, you can get your response. What's cool about this is like with Gumloop, um, you can run the flow however you want. So you have the interface. We now have a webhook handler. So any tool that has a webhook, you can use webhook input, right? So and then we'll parse either with AI or with a JSON reader the output of that. So every flow has a webhook that you can integrate with URL. So webhook API interface timer and triggers as well. So we have a bunch of triggers that you can submissions, Gmail, whatever it is that you need. And our approach is like we want to have a very high ceiling. Right, this may be where I can leave folks. Like we want to allow folks like yourself to build really cool workflows, but also like feel approachable and not feel like, oh my God, what am I getting into? So
Mhm.
we've invested a lot in making the product look and feel good and usable. And so we want to be the best of both worlds, right? So if you're just, hey, I just want to use the thing that my friend built, organization templates, interfaces, we're gonna turn it on for you. Hey, I'm like, I can build anything. We're like, great. We giving you MCP nodes. We're giving you custom nodes. So I just
Mm.
Command Shift G, and you could just write a custom node, and you can prompt AI to write code for you. This is particularly useful for advanced routing things, or for hey, connect with this API that only I have access to. It's similar to the MCP experience, but it just writes code. There's no external. It can connect to external things, but not MCPs.
I have one question on
Looping,
this one.
subflows, yeah.
I have one question on this one for custom nodes. So one thing, so you give us a demo with MCP for Google Calendar. So and you
Hmm.
already have existing modules with the Google Calendar API. Can I feed the API documentation of a service you don't integrate to yet? Basically the page of the API describing the different endpoints, and
Yeah,
have it like, here's the service that doesn't connect, like go to this page, and
yeah.
I would like to connect with this and create my own node this way.
Yeah, yeah, yes. So actually, this is a great place
Oh,
to end the stream. So when I was at Webflow, this is why I joined Gumloop. So our challenge at Webflow was that I was on the community team, and we received about 1,000 notifications a day on Twitter, on X, LinkedIn, YouTube comments, Reddit, and my boss would wake up, Emily, love her to death. She would wake up every morning and be like, Aron, I need you to respond to these 3 Reddit posts, because she would wake up, check Reddit, someone was unhappy about Webflow. And I was like, Emily, we have 700 people who I haven't answered. Why would I answer the 3 people on Reddit? She was like, because I check Reddit. And I was like, Emily, this is not good. So what I built was a Gumloop. Funny enough, an engineer built a cursor app, like built an application in Cursor that monitored Reddit and Twitter using the APIs. And I was
yeah,
like, hey, Aron, you could use it now. You're smart enough. Use Cursor. And I was like, I don't understand any of this. It breaks all the time.
yeah.
And then I rebuilt the whole thing in Gumloop, but Gumloop didn't have connections it had an X connection, but it didn't have Reddit and it didn't have YouTube comments. So I actually used the custom node and I copy pasted the docs. And you'd be surprised, like especially models today, they understand these APIs kind of
Yeah.
instinctively because it's in their training data. And then I went back and forth with Gummy, and that's how I added YouTube comments. I added Reddit as well, Discourse. I added Discourse forums as well. All those are today native nodes, but when I joined in December, they weren't, and I was able to do it with Gummy. So what I would recommend if you're like, oh, if you're patient a little bit and can go back and forth with Gummy, I never wrote any of the code. I just kind of gave it the docs and
Yeah.
it, wrote the code for me. So yes, you can connect with outside APIs. No OAuth though. That's really the value of MCP, is that we both have that MCP server, so it works much better, and we handle all the auth. So when I saw what I could do just with Gummy, I was like, oh my God, like imagine if all of those nodes were native. And now with MCP, I'm like, really, there's no, like, we just
No
launched
limits.
Stripe. Yeah, you can literally say, like, give me all my customers from last week, and it'll just build the node for you. Tell me what my revenue was today, or give me every churn customer over the last 3 days that was on a trial, right? And then enrich with Apollo. Every time a form is submitted, send me a webhook, and then enrich, scrape their website, send them an email, custom email, whatever. So yeah, I am super excited about what everyone is going to build on Gumloop. Like, a final note here, like I'm super excited because I don't know what you'll build. I'm just excited to see it because I'm sure it's not something I would have ever thought of, and the way you all will use the platform is just is really every cohort. I always say this on Friday. It's show and tell, and then someone builds something. I'm like, I didn't even know you could do that. That's so cool, right?
Let's
Uh,
do let's do next time because we've done quite a few sessions on like tools and discussing capabilities and stuff. Let's do next time, later this year, a session where you bring people who are using Gumloop and they showcase what they've built, so
sure.
people get an idea. I've seen a few things passing on X that were fairly impressive. Let's bring those people. They can describe how they build the solution, show a little bit behind the scenes and the thinking that went into it. I think it could be really interesting for the audience to check that as well. Yeah, or unless you have also other features to tease, what's coming next on Gumloop side?
Yeah, yeah. So I would love that. I know a lot of folks who would love that opportunity.
Let's
So
do it. Let's do it.
yeah. Um, in terms of what's coming next, agent mode, the ability to build a workflow from scratch. So we're also hoping to incorporate MCP nodes into that because we believe that surprisingly AI will be faster and better at building those nodes because there's more context around the flow than we
Yeah.
are. So that's the next step. And then we are building a ton of MCP connections, right? So basically, every
Gotcha.
day you're going to log into Gumloop, there's going to be a new connection. So some I can tease, we're going to have TikTok, Instagram, and a better Apollo integration in the next coming days. And then what's also great is like people are giving us feedback around our MCPs, and they're just getting better, better, better every day. And that might sound weird, but a good example, like our GitHub issues, like people were using GitHub in two different ways. Some people were giving it to get commits, other people were getting it to get issues, and issues have their own connections and custom fields. So now it supports custom fields, right? So we can improve those MCP servers because we are the client, right? We
Yeah.
control the whole stack.
Yeah.
And really, if you hit a prompt that doesn't work, but we're going to improve it and we're going to make it better.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm mostly excited about. And I don't know about you, Alex, like Gumloop looks so much better, right? I can't believe I was using that
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
3 months ago. It looks terrible. Now I'm like, oh, I get excited every morning.
No, no, like
So we're going to keep improving the UI, the UX every single day. And we want to make this the most enjoyable automation platform you have to use. We have a lot to do to make that happen. Yeah, and we're super excited. Just people, we're a small team. And we're just super excited to see how everybody uses Gumloop and we're
everybody's
really
10x there. I have the feeling everybody's quite, small teams these days can lift mountains. So, um,
yeah, for
yeah,
sure. For sure.
yeah, very cool, very cool, very cool. Let's do another one this year, later this year. Maybe we'll showcase some use cases. Bring bring some Gumloop power users, and so they can show us a bit behind the scenes what are they doing.
Yep.
Very excited about the upcoming TikTok and Instagram modules. I think
Yep.
on the GTM side, that would
Hmm.
make you like a very like complete platform if you want to monitor your activity, your mentions on all social media. Probably this means you will soon be able to do it across any platform with
Yep.
Gumloop. I think this is very cool. For the questions we haven't answered, I will look into it, and yeah, we have to close the live now. Thank you for everyone who joined. Aaron, it was a pleasure.
Always.
The
Happy.
masterclass. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Welcome.
Do another one
Yeah.
soon.
Anytime.
Cheers.
And I can't wait to come back. Thank you, everyone.